Good morning and welcome to today's series. We're talking about the essential elements of well-being, and Sue and myself are covering different topics every week. And this one is about the barriers to exercise. How are you doing?
Yeah, great. And you, Bridget, I'm so interested to hear what you're going to talk about because I know that you are a mindset coach and this is so much about mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it really is. You know, the thing is with exercise, what's crazy about it is you can do something that costs nothing. Walking, running, maybe playing soccer, dancing, dancing in your home, yoga. There's so much you can do that costs nothing, but yet people really battle to maintain it. So what is your secrets first?
Well, I think the way I've always thought about it is I've always loved exercising. So for me, it's actually been fairly easy. But with clients, I'm so aware of how exercise is really foundational for helping you to change, helping you to grow. When you're stuck with something, if you can just feel that positive energy, it's almost like a power dynamic that plays out in the human system. I've had to sort of work with what's behind it, and what stops people from doing it, which is exactly the topic today. And I think it's often about the way that we think about it. So how do we feel when we exercise, and how do we talk about ourselves as exercisers? So I had this one client who was actually exercising a lot, but she said she had like 2 left feet and she was useless at it. And there was such a negative phrasing always about exercise. And I was so struck by that because actually she was pretty much an athlete, but not using it. So it was so difficult for her. Even though she was managing, she was forcing herself to do it all the time. There wasn't a sort of nice virtuous circle. So I think the way we talk about and think about exercise is so influential.
Yeah, I think it's finding a reason and making it like so mentally preparing yourself. So making that commitment of you want to be a healthy, active person. And I think if that's part of your identity and you're mentally committed, then I think that massively impacts what you're going to do, because that's how you see yourself. So if you see yourself as somebody who is healthy and active and fit, there's a mindset shift to if you see you're somebody who is more laid back, likes to lie on the couch, read books, and not an exercise person. So it's almost like making it such a big thing, as opposed to going, any form of movement is exercise. And some people see exercise as a bit of a swear word. It's like, oh my gosh, if I got to run and I'm not fit and it's going to kill me. And as opposed to thinking, actually, if it's movement, then that could be any kind of movement. It could be dancing. It could be throwing the ball for your dog. It could be walking on the beach. It's kind of endless what you can do.
I love what you're picking up on there, which is sort of the enjoyment factor. Because I think that the idea of having to, run 5 kilometers if you've never run before, I mean, there's nothing enjoyable about that. Nobody's going to love that. So how can you get into routines around things that are actually enjoyable, that create that positive reinforcing cycle? But I loved also what you were saying about identity, because I think it is caught up a lot in how we identify ourselves as exercisers or non-exercisers. Fascinating.
Yeah, and then we surround ourselves with similar. I mean, it's interesting because I've exercised my whole life and I always have. Yet in my kind of social circle, there are no exercisers. I come from an exercise family. I mean, my mother's 81 and she exercises pretty much every day. My dad passed away in May, but he was exercising pretty much every day. My sister, she's in the UK and she exercises pretty much every day. So it's very much, I was brought up that way. So I think it's really in my wiring. So even if I go away with friends, inevitably I'll pretty much be the only one who will regularly go out every single day and exercise. So, but I think your surroundings can influence. If you are somebody who hasn't got that extra kind of commitment and you're surrounded by people that are quite, sedentary, I think that there's a great likelihood that you're going to be the same because it's just kind of easier. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that has a huge impact. And I think, if you're not surrounded by that, and you're not in a way of not creating the space for it sort of naturally, then you have to work on all of those things. How do I create the space? How do I get it into my calendar? How do I think about it so that I understand really what the benefits are to me? And I think sometimes we say these things, but we don't really let them sink in. I mean, exercise is so phenomenal, physically, mentally, for stress. It's just such an all-round benefit. I mean, you couldn't find anything for sleep, and that has also its sort of string of benefits. So yeah, there was one lovely idea that I came across this week, actually, for people who really struggle. So it was a guy who was trying to get into an exercise routine, and he had a gym in his building, and it was already included in the cost. There were no real barriers. All he had to do was go downstairs in the morning or the evening or whenever he chose to, and go to the gym. It was all there waiting for him. So he's a behaviorist, and behavioral psychologist, I guess. And so what he did was he taped $100 bill to the wall, and he said, if I don't go exercise, I've got to burn the $100 bill. Wow. Because we were very wired to avert loss, so it's a loss aversion that he's working on. He couldn't burn the bills, go down and do the exercise until he didn't need that anymore.
Yeah.
Until the exercise, was so much a part of his routine that he stopped thinking, stopped putting all those barriers in the way. So he used that, which I thought was quite an extreme but lovely example.
Yeah, because once it's in there, once that habit's formed, I think it is, it is a lot easier. And a tip that I also want to share is that I understand boredom is a factor. So say, for example, like my mom plays tennis, and say, it's very same, right? Because I mean, it's, you, the other person, the tennis racket, the ball, it's very same. So say you get to a point where you think, okay, I'm a bit bored of this. All you then have to do is think of something which is very similar skills. And you then will use those same skills, but you'll do something else with those similar skills. So then it's a slight change, but it's a similar kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So keep it exciting.
Yeah. So you're just kind of then transferring to something else, which then could lead. So say you go from ballroom dancing to karate. And then from karate, you think, hang on a minute, I need some more upper body strength. Oh, okay. Let me go and do some weight training and some push-ups. And you go into that. So slowly you start kind of mind mapping your physical activity so you don't get stuck on one thing. With the holidays coming up now, there's going to be lots of consumption, I assume, which is fantastic. Lots of downtime, fantastic. And maybe a good time to start something. Maybe start hiking, maybe start walking, maybe just start going on the beach with your dog.
Such a great point, because there is actually more time to exercise. And I think one of the other things that affects the boredom issue is actually doing it as combining it with a social interaction. So walking with a friend, going dancing with a mate, whatever it is. That works really well for me. I love to run with a group and chat, and that just seems to sort of up the enjoyment for me. So yeah.
One last little tip is apparently for people who can see the finish line. So, your perception is everything, right? So people who can literally see the finish line, they are more inclined to stay motivated than people who can't. Because if you think about a finish line, if you're doing an event and people that are so busy kind of looking around, and it just seems longer and harder than when they're actually looking at the finish line. So just remember, with everything, you have your own perception, which doesn't mean it's reality, it's your perception of it. So maybe find a way to stay motivated and stay active and just keep it easier for the new year.
Yeah, keep it going, keep moving.
Yeah.